Great Dark Beyond. We've got the Priest class set first. So kicking it off with the Legendary, one of two. This is Kiyer, the Light Beyond. 3 mana, 3/3, Spell Burst, summon a random 3 cost minion. Holy spells do not remove the Spell Burst. So, Spell Burst, first time, well, usually the first time you cast a spell, you get some kind of bonus, but as this stipulates, holy spells keep the spell burst alive. Interestingly, that does imply that if you were to cast a non-holy spell, that then removes the spell burst. So even if you cast a holy spell later on, that's not going to synergize, and you're not going to get to summon a random 3-cost minion. Is this card any good? I think the short answer is no. I think the problem is you want to play this on curve, but it's a 3 mana 3/3. And that's very easy to kill. There's a lot of 3 damage removal in a lot of classes, so you need to immediately be making advantage of this effect. There is a specific spell from this set that I think is basically going to make this card live or die, but I think having a legendary where you need very specific spells to make it work isn't very good. I think aggro gets on top of you faster than you can reliably summon random 3-cost minions off the back of this. And even then, you know, you can easily get like a 2/2 body as a random 3-cost minion, and that's just straight up disappointing. So, yeah. Priest does have quite the depth in terms of holy spells, but, you know, if you're going to play this on 4 alongside Holy Smite, you know, remove their threat, summon 2 of yours. That's kind of, yeah, you know, that's fairly reasonable, but I think that quickly tails off in terms of the existing Priest Holy Spell variety. In terms of spells in general, does Priest currently have a 1-cost, a 0-cost spell? It doesn't. So, yeah. I think you're going to see some experimentation, but ultimately, I don't think, unfortunately, Kyo is going to make the cut. So yeah, that's a shame. Next card, Gravity Lapse. So there you go. We do have a 0-cost spell in Priest, but it's a very weird one. I think, you know, traditionally Priest has had spells which, you know, set minions' health. Minions' attack equal to their health. And you can get some, like, you know, pretty ridiculous surprise lethals where you make your minion's health really big and then set the attack to it and then swing for like 30. But this doesn't work. If you were to try that similar thing, you'd end up with, you know, health being set back down to whatever the attack is again, so it doesn't work. You know, it's going to make your opponent's threats smaller, but it's never going to kill anything either. So, yeah, I just think maybe there's a really weird combo that's going to prove me wrong, but, you know, even for a 0-cost spell, I don't think this is it. So, yeah, no, unfortunately not. The Mystified Tocha is a 4 mana 4/2 with Battlecry. If the combined health of both heroes is exactly 42, set your hero's health to 42. We've seen Priest have these types of effects before, specifically Awaken the Makers. It was the original Priest quest from Journey to Ungaro, which set your hero's health to 40. But, you know, quests obviously start in your hand to get them going, and then that specific Priest quest was to have summoned, I think, 7 Death Rattle minions. I think that's a lot more consistently easier to do than Mystified Tocha. Obviously, the difference here is, you know, you can run two of these, and priest out of all the classes, except for maybe warlock, has the easiest time with health manipulation. Both, you can heal yourself up or you can damage yourself and also, of course, your opponent as well. It's worth pointing out that, you know, at any point during your turn, you can have your combined health at 42 and take advantage. So, if you've got a bunch of minions down, you can do that maths and secure the battle cry and then carry on swinging. Um, I just think it's going to be really hard to pull off. And the reward of doing so is to just basically say, if your opponent's an aggro deck, they're going to be very upset. If you're in a control match, I don't know that this is going to make enough of a difference. You regularly see like Death Knight mucking around in the 50 to 60 health range and with armor. Druid also can do that kind of nonsense. So I think this on its own isn't doing enough. It is a fantastic reference to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, though. So, I think it'll hold a place in all our hearts, but I'm not sure. I think it's one that you'll see popping up in some ETC trios. ETC Band Manager here. I think it could crop up as one of the three possible options, alongside the weapon removal and, general board wipe / silence removal that you tend to see in ETC tech lists. So yeah, I'll be very happy to see it, but I'm not sure we'll see it very often, unfortunately. Then we have Overzealous Healer. Now this is a card. Our first Draenei, and it's a 1 mana 3/3. For those who've been around as long as I have, Zombie Chow was the 1 mana 2/3 neutral card. Death Rattle restored 5 health to the enemy hero. This one gets the +1 attack and restores 6 instead of 5. That's incredibly, it really doesn't matter. The fact is, you will, priests are going to have access to a 1 mana 3/3, which I think is great because priest has been struggling outside of aggro to really shut down when it's faced against aggro and other things. So to have this, I think, is actually really good for the class. The spell burst, I think, is quite incidental. If you trigger it and you've already dealt a bunch of damage to your opponent, obviously you're going to be happy, but it doesn't make or break the card, and the card is already well and truly made. This is an excellent card, and I think basically every priest is going to be running it, except like a very hyper-aggressive priest. And even then, I think it might still be good enough. So, yeah. Get used to seeing it. It's 1 mana 3/3. Anchorite. 3 mana 2/4, also a Draenei. Whenever another minion is overhealed, give it that much extra health. There's been a similar card in the past. Yeah, so instead of it being overheal, healing effects also give affected minions +2 health. So even if a minion wasn't at full health, it would still give it the +2. Oh, thank you, Nosdomo. On time, as always. Yeah, so, there's more flexibility there for you to get more than 2 health. It's quite rare that you're only going to be given something +1 on the overheal, although, it will come up. In any case, Lightsteed didn't really see play. I tried, but no. Anchorite. Yeah, I don't see how this does any better, really. It is cheaper, but a 3 mana 2/4 is too slow, really. And I think the type of shenanigans that you tend to be doing with the funnel cake you don't really care about giving your own minions extra health off of that. It's basically for mana cheat purposes. Um, so yeah, I don't think so. Unless, we might come back to this when you see some type of weird combo in the future, but otherwise, I don't think Anchorite is going to see any play. Okay, Orbital Halo. Now, it's a 2-mana holy spell, which gives a minion +2/+1 and Divine Shield, but it costs 0 if you played an adjacent card this turn. Now, how this reads to me is basically, unless you've top decked this card, or it's been sat in your hand for far too long, which, this is a fairly tempo-esque card, so I don't think you'll ever really have it go all the way to the left side of your hand, unless that's just the way that your opening hand came out. So, yeah, essentially, I think it's going to be very easy to trigger this because it's usually going to be sandwiched between 2 cards, and therefore will end up costing 0. I think that's really big. I think, as I spoke about earlier with Kyo, this is the card that would make or break it, but I don't think it will. But I still think this is a really good card. Just because, it's a very effective card that costs 0 a lot of the time. It'll let you trade up and keep your minions sticking around, especially those ones you want to have sticking around for an extra turn. Those high value threats, yeah, definitely see him play. I think this is a great card. Light Speed, again, 2-mana holy spell, and it's not the last one we're going to see. But this one gives a minion +2/+1, and +1/+2 and rush, and is repeatable this turn. I feel sorry for wild players here. If I can find it, there's the elemental, wherever it's gone. It's quite infamous amongst Hearthstone community at this point. Here we go, Radiant Elemental. Yeah, in wild, I think this is going to absolutely make a mess because, that APM priest where you're basically going to get a second copy of a Radiant Elemental in play, and then Lightspeed costs 0, and then you just absolutely slam whatever minions doesn't have Summoning Sickness, and you just swing for lethal. Yeah. But in terms of standard, Priest doesn't really have, Radiant Elemental was a bit of a an outlier in terms of the types of cards that Priest tends to get, so I don't really think you're ever going to get that down to even 1, let alone 0. And therefore, I don't think this card's good enough. You're often, if you're going to be getting on the board fast enough, you're not really going to have a spare 2 mana to give a minion +1/+2 and rush. A lot of the cards in the game do something when they come down already, so rush on top of that doesn't often matter. I'm left thinking of the similar card in Demon Hunter, through Felon Flames, which does see play, but that's because it costs 0. Gives a minion rush and +1/+1. So for 2 more mana, you get +1 health. That's terrible. I don't think Lightspeed sees play. No. And then we've got Divine Star. This is a very solid classic removal spell. Just in terms of it being a 2 mana, deal 3 to a minion. And yep, also a holy spell. It's a little out of flavour. Priest, I wish we saw more priest cards that were more like good old Shadow Word Pain. having priest deal direct damage, even if it's just to a minion, I'm not a huge fan of. I quite liked this type of design space for priest removal, but there you go. It's also reminiscent of another Naxxramas card. We've already spoken about Zombie Chow, but from way back when, yeah, Dark Cultist. So yeah, given a random minion +3 health, it's unfair to compare it to Dark Cultist because Dark Cultist is a minion, and it was also from another time. I think basically you don't care that much about the +3 health. Sometimes it's going to hit something relevant, but a lot of the time it's going to hit something that you didn't really care whether it had that much health or that much health +3. So yeah, but I still think it sees play regardless because early game removal is almost required in modern Hearthstone. So, yep, that's good. Priest needs help, so I think Divine Star is a great way to address that. So yeah. Okay, and then we've got Ascara, the other Priest legendary. It is a Draenei, and as a battle cry, the next Draenei you play summons a copy of itself. So, yeah, basically, you are being told that you want to play an expensive Draenei or 2 or 4 in your deck so that when you play it after Ascara, you're going to get 2 of them instead of 1. This card kind of just lives and dies based on how good Draenei are. So, it's more of a card to bear in mind when discussing all the other cards. This is obviously leading on to the last priest card we're looking at, which is Shield of Ascara. So, yeah, here you go. 6 mana, 4/8, Taunt, Divine Shield, and Lifesteal, and a Draenei. 6 mana, 4/8, Taunt, Divine Shield, Lifesteal. I think this is just about good enough, even not considering the legendary that we've just looked at. I think you can somewhat reliably get to 6, turn 6, and throw this down, and it is quite the roadblock. I think most classes are going to struggle to get around this without having to hit it at least once, and in doing so, they're going to undo a lot of the hard work that they've done if they are an aggro deck. So yeah, and stabilizing at that point in the game means that turn 7 comes around, and then Priest starts to get all its tools to shut everything down and really control the game from that point on. So yeah, I think Shield of Ascara is it, just about. Obviously, if you've played Ascara the turn before and you get 2 of these, that's huge. So yeah, your opponents need to have multiple removal spells or a board clear. You've got to bear in mind as well, if you've already got the 4/5 Ascara as well. So that really is starting to become a little oppressive for an aggro deck to get around. Thing is, I don't, this Draenei package for Priest isn't going to win games by itself. I think it's going to be falling back on more renowned control tools, the Renos, that sort of thing. Because, as we've now seen, Priest doesn't have any of the Starship piece stuff, so it's quite unlikely that we're going to see it do anything with the Starship pieces. So we've got Dimensional Core, 3 mana, 3/2, Divine Shield. That's a totally fair card, but it works in this. It'll potentially work in a Starship piece, class. But I think for the classes that don't have any specific Starship pieces, I don't think you can justify having a 3 mana 3/2 with Divine Shield. It's not awful, but I don't think it's good enough either. Yeah. And then I think the only other neutral Starship piece is the Arcanite Defense Crystal, which is admittedly a lot better. 3/4 taunt, which also gives you 6 armor when it dies. So that's, in theory, 10 health on top of your life total for your opponent to get through. So it helps you get further in, but, between this and the Dimensional Core, assuming you got all 4 of those out, that's going to be like a 12-16 if you were to put the 5 mana in and get the Starship. So yeah, a 12-16 taunt, Divine Shield, Death Rattle, gain 12 armor. Like, yeah, it's a massive roadblock, but you've got to remember you've got to play all 4 of the pieces to get to that point. Are you happy just running Arcanite Defense Crystals? You'd end up with a 6/8 taunt, Death Rattle, gain 12 armor. It's good, but you're taking up deck slots for a fairly jank idea. Admittedly, it's quite funny, but I don't think you can get away with it. And I guess while we're here as well, we've got Velen, the other Draenei legendary, I think. I don't think there's another one that Priest has access to. Doesn't really have much to synergize with in terms of Priest. Ironically, the Death Rattle from the 1 mana 3/3 does not benefit you. It benefits your opponent. Worth pointing out as well that, it talks about triggering the battle cries and death rattles of other Draenei that you've played. So even if you get the spell burst to remove the death rattle, you've still played the 1 mana 3/3. So I think Velen will still get the death rattle. So there's not much to really do with it, unfortunately. So there you go. Yeah, Priest has got tools, but I think it's still going to be basically using those tools to use previous Priest packages, which is fine because Priest has struggled for quite some time now, other than some aggro variants. I think at the moment you're basically looking at sort of these types of cards like Brain Masseuse, where you're just looking at the big stats, similarly to the 1 mana 3/3, similarly to the Overzealous Healer. You don't really care about the text box, you just want big stats, and you want to start hitting your opponent as quickly as possible. I think the mini set, gave them a 2 mana 4/4 Envoy of Prosperity. But I don't think, Priest needs to use that, along with everyone else. The mini set largely ignored. So yeah, I think Priest will be doing better. But I don't think it's shining either. So there you go. Hunter, class everyone loves to hate. But similarly to Priest, I think Hunter has also been struggling more recently. So, we've got to let them have their fun every once in a while as well, haven't we? So what are we looking at? We've got Biopod, a 2 mana 2/2 death rattle, deal damage equal to this minion's attack to a random enemy. And it is the first Starship piece. So Hunter is a Starship class for the set. So that's going to be, I'm looking forward to Starships. I think Starships seem cool. And so it's 2 mana 2/2, and it can deal 2 to the face afterwards, or remove those early threats. 2 isn't always a guaranteed kill, but it's gonna be a little bit Knife Juggler-esque from way back when, where basically you're gonna be riding off of those early game opportunities where at the start of the game, you're going to get some random opportunities to get lucky with, getting the random damage to hit the minion that you want it to hit. Knife Juggler was quite the staple back in its day. This is somewhat similar. It doesn't have the same high roll potential where, God, the Knife Juggler along with Unleash the Hounds and that sort of nonsense. It's nowhere near that, but it does feed into the Starship. So basically later on in the game, if you get the big Starship and it dies, it's going to basically smack something very hard, hopefully, which again could be your opponent's face. So yeah, I think this fits into a more aggressively tuned Starship deck. Naturally, the Starship deck is more mid-rangey rather than pure aggro. But yeah, I certainly think this helps it fight for the board at the start of the game. So yeah, I'm hopeful. I think Biopod, we're going to look at the rest of the Starship pieces, but yeah, I think this starts off on a good foot. Oh, we're going the wrong way. Okay, Extraterrestrial Egg. Excellent name. Truly, this is the king of all eggs that we've seen in Hearthstone's history. 2 mana 0/2 death rattle, summon a 3/5 beast that then attacks the lowest health enemy. So, when you crack this egg, it's very often going to kill something straight away, and you're still going to have something left over. So, that's pretty excellent. It's kind of like probably you could end up having it'd be like having a 3/2 come in that deals 3 to the lowest health enemy again. So yeah, I think this sees tons of play in basically any hunter deck that can reliably trigger this. When we look at the eggs of the past, you've got the Rubian egg, which was the high watermark for a very long time. I think Extraterrestrial Egg is just straight up better, and I don't think it's much of a contest. The Nerubian has the +1 attack, but the 3/5 beast gets to swing straight away. So yeah, I think it's just better, which is great news. I think this is some excellent flavour for Hunter. In terms of what Hunter can do with it, other than just having it hit the board and hoping it'll do the thing. Yeah. I'm trying to think of any Death Rattle synergy that we have at the moment. I mean, you've got the hand buff stuff, so, like many eggs, even getting it the +1/+1 means you can trigger it without any other assistance. So that works really well. And I think Messenger Buzzard was one of the better Hunter cards that we already had. So yeah, I think that fits pretty well. Camouflage Mount as well. Yeah, that works. And we've still got Yelling Yodeler. So yeah, this really does. I think this really does fit into these types of packages, and I think it will stick around for the entire lifespan of Hunter having access to this in standard. So yeah, I look forward to having to duke it out with some. What is the token? Egg Burster. Ooh, yeah, lovely. So yeah, contending with some Egg Bursters, I think, is in everyone's futures here. We've then got another Starship piece, a 3 mana 2/6 Specimen Claw. After your opponent plays a minion, attack it. This does only have 2 attack, so I think it's rare that, I don't think this puts a complete roadblock on your opponent. Most minions that your opponent's going to play on either turn 3 or turn 4 onwards have more than 2 health. So, yeah, I don't think this is that exceptional on its own. Obviously, it is feeding into the Starship piece, but whereas Biopod was asking you to have, as much attack as possible going into the Starship, this is only giving it an extra 2. And yeah, I don't think the Starship is going to benefit from having a ridiculous amount of health. You've got the Exodar. Sorry, the Exodar. I apologise to any Warcraft nerds that already know what this is, and I haven't got a clue. But yeah, emergency repairs is one of the options on the Exodar, which gives you armor equal to the Starship's health twice. So that's the payoff for getting a very high health Starship. Hunter isn't really known for trying to stall out the game. We all love the idea of Control Hunter, we really do. But it's it's basically always been a pipe dream, and I don't think this changes that. Other classes can beat that type of, it is a big swing potentially in terms of life, but I don't think it's worth running a Specimen Claw in order to do it. So yeah, I don't know that this. I don't think this goes in the Starship, unfortunately. So yeah, this is a big hit against hunters doing the Starships, but we'll see if they get anything else. Laser Barrage. It's a 2 mana, deal 3 damage to a minion. We do love doing that. If you're building a Starship, you also damage its neighbors. So as long as you've already played a Starship piece, this will be online, which is quite significant. The Biopod is only 2 mana. The neutral Starship pieces are 3 and 4 mana. So, in terms of getting your Starship, off the ground, I think those are up to 6 minions that you might be playing in a Starship Hunter deck. So, I think there's a lot of opportunities there to get the Laser Barrage to deal, with potentially 3 threats in one card. Yeah, this is a lot more evocative of the type of Control Hunter card versus Specimen Claw. And even if you're only just using this to deal 3 damage to a minion, it's still perfectly reasonable. Keeping any aggro type things at bay. And even more so if you get the bonus. So yeah, I think this is a solid addition to the Starship Hunter deck. So yeah, it seems like it's coming together. And then we've got a legendary, Exarch Niel. 3 mana 3/4 Battle Cry. Replace your hero power with tracking. So tracking, I think I don't need to bring this up, but I'm going to do it anyway. It tells you what it does. You pay 1 mana, and you discover a card from your deck. It will give you a 1 mana hero power as well. I think it might let me. Yep. So there it is. So yeah, your hero power is 1 mana, and it discovers a card from your deck. That does also draw it to your hand. So yeah, I think this does a lot of things for Hunter. Having consistent access to a draw means that a lot more of your deck can worry about doing other things. I think that is a part of Hunter lists that struggles at the moment, is having that aggressive game plan, but also keeping the momentum going as you play all these lower cost spells usually that don't necessarily have a big impact on the board. So finding those later game threats that let you get lethal is massive. And I think as time's gone on as well, the default hero powers for each class have been less and less impactful. Aside from Demon Hunter, which has always had a 1-mana hero power. So yeah, I think basically binning Hunters 2 mana deal 2 to face is almost always going to be preferential, and swapping it for tracking. So yeah, I think this card's great. The main thing it has to get over is, you pay 3 mana and get a 3/4 that doesn't immediately do anything. So, you need to have room alongside this to keep up with your opponent, but Hunter's good at doing that. With things like we've just looked at with Laser Barrage. So I think you're gonna have enough breathing room to get this down, and when you do, it's gonna help make you more consistently do whatever your game plan is gonna be. So yeah, I think it's really good, and I think it's got a lot of flexibility in the types of decks that it can go into. So yeah, I think this is gonna see quite a decent amount of play. So yeah, cool. Parallax Cannon, 3 mana, 2/3 weapon, and it has +2 attack if you've discovered this turn. Now, this isn't the first card we're going to see from Hunter in this set that cares about Discover, which is a refreshing direction for Hunters to go into as a theme. And straight away, I mean, yeah, we've got the gift, which, isn't a gift I actually ever see being run. So yeah, you've got actual tracking. So I think crucially, if you've played Exarch Niall, your hero power obviously does then trigger this. So that's another way of accessing this quite easily without having to have tons of support, which is really good. Titanforge traps. This sees a lot of play, and has been kind of holding Hunter together in some ways for a while. So I think that's going to go a long way to making this card playable. Bird watching hasn't really seen the play. Hunter's not really got something that can turn this to ridiculous levels, at least not yet. But if the Discover package is enough incentive, I think bird watching, because bird watching does draw the card and buffs it. So yeah, this could mean bird watching starts seeing more play as well. And yeah, that's about it for. I do see a bit of mismatched fossils, but I might be confusing that with Arena. In terms of the neutrals, we're all very familiar with Discover popping up quite a bit in the neutral spell pool, or card pool rather. Scarab Keychain's quite hot. We've just looked at multiple 2-cost spells there, which also then Discover, so you can see how this starts to compile together. Typal Pupil, also a solid choice, although this one is harder to get to the point of where you actually get to Discover. So yeah, it's still solid. So yeah, plenty of Discover options, but Hunter specifically does have some good options going into the set. So I don't. Crucially, that all comes together and says, I think you can consistently be getting this to +2 to attack. Probably not on the turn that you actually play it, but you know, I think on the turn that you play it, assuming it's turn 3, clear something off your opponent's board, and then start pushing for 4 damage to the face on the second 2 turns, and then you've done 8 damage. Spell Burst gives your hero immune this turn. You know, I think it's another similar Spell Burst effect where I don't think you necessarily going nuts for getting the trigger on this, but there's going to be situations where it does actually somewhat matter. But often these types of aggro hunter decks, you know, it's not about what your health total is. It's about getting your opponent to 0 before you do, and it doesn't matter what your health value was. So, yeah, I guess we'll see. We'll see what the rest of the Discover stuff for Hunter is like. And here's one. Alien Encounters. It's a 5-mana spell, and it summons 2 2/5 beasts with Taunt, and it costs 1 less for each card you have discovered this game. So, yeah, this, I would say, it's definitely more on the control end of the spectrum, because those 2 2/5s are mostly there as a roadblock for your opponent. I just don't know if you can afford to run a card like this. Yeah, it's payoff for doing all the Discover stuff, but I just think it's too slow to main deck. You need to be getting involved in the game straight away. And I don't think you can necessarily afford to have this sat in your hand costing 4 mana. Once it costs 3, yeah, okay. But if it's taking up your space in your hand in the meantime, when you could have been doing something else, yeah, it'll be good to discover into, because obviously it's going to cost at least 4 or lower if you actually just discover it, which would be much better. But a lot of the cards that we just looked at in terms of Discover don't specifically. Alien Encounters does not qualify as one of the Discover options. I don't think this sees play. I don't think so. No. I don't think them being beast is relevant either. So, yeah, I don't think this sees play. Rangari Scout. 1 mana, 1/2, Draenei. After you discover a card, you get a copy of it. So, more Discover payoff. And this is much more widespread in terms of the types of payoffs that you get. Even just playing this as a 1 mana, 1/2, with no aspirations of getting the trigger, I think is fine. It's the type of 1 mana card that you play on turn 1, and your opponent looks at it and goes, yeah, I'd rather that didn't necessarily stick around. So you might be able to squeeze some more premium removal out of your opponent, or make them coin on turn 1. It's kind of like what's that lad called now? Something like Peasant, isn't it? See if I can find it. But yeah, similarly to the one that is 2 mana, 1/2. No, that's not what it is called. Is it 2 mana or is it 1 mana? It's not that good, is it? Gold Panna, there you go. Yeah, similarly to Gold Panna, I think you put it down. Gold Panna obviously is getting you. Gold Panna's so good. It gets you a lot more than the Rangari Scout does, because it starts, it does it by itself. Whereas Rangari Scout, you have to play a card that discovers. But I think Rangari Scout works. I think your opponent will feel like they need to get rid of it as quickly as possible. And this is the type of one drop that does really well later on in the game as well. You can sneak it out alongside your other discover effects and then get a lot of refill. So, you know, this is that kind of card where when hunters are throwing things out at a decent rate early in the game and they need to restock their hand, Rangari Scout's going to be able to do that. So yeah, I'm optimistic about Rangari Scout, and I mean, yeah, a 1-mana 1/2. It's fighting for the board, so yeah, I think it's good. Detailed notes: 2 mana, discover a beast that costs 5 or more, and then reduce its cost by 2. So, in terms of high cost beasts in Hunter, I'm immediately thinking of everyone's favourite plushie, King Plush. That's certainly that's a big one. So getting that down to 7, that's pretty huge. Tyrannosaurus as well. I'll show you the one that is easier to read. Getting that to cost 5, that's pretty good as well. Hollowhound as well. That can really help stabilize. This again fits in that Discover package nicely. That's fleshed out quite well here. So yeah, the Hollowhound is going to help stabilize for the type of mid-rangey Discover decks that Hunter looks like it's going to be pivoting towards. Product 9, I don't know if we were talking about Titanfall's traps fitting into the Discover package, so can you amalgamate it with the secret package in Hunter? I mean, this is all quite speculative because Discover is by its nature quite random, but yeah, you might see Product 9 and it's going to make sense every once in a while. But of course, 5 is the lower limit here, so these types of beasts are never going to show up. And kind of evocative of big dreams here in terms of what are we actually doing with detailed notes. If you get a 5 cost beast, it means that if you played detailed notes on turn 2, you're getting a 3 mana 5 cost beast early in the game. Cash Cow seems like a really good fit in terms of that because your opponent's going to be slamming stuff into this early in the game, so you're going to get multiple coins, which is then going to help you accelerate towards more expensive beasts. So that's a really good pull, I think, from that. In terms of the neutral pool, you've got, I don't think Origami Frog is necessarily going to be the type of thing you're going to be getting early in the game. It's going to help you trade, but yeah, I don't think you're going to be thrilled. Stranglethorn Tiger is probably better, getting you a solid body on the board that your opponent can't interact with, and then you can just swing it at whatever dangerous minion they put down, so that's pretty good. Beach Whale might be kind of alright as well. Getting a 4/10 on turn 5. Solid. Yeah, there's options. There's actually not, unless I'm missing a bunch. You got one Amalgam Band as well, so that's decent. But yeah, so there's actually not a huge pool of beasts for this to be pulling from. Spurfang, I think you're happy playing this as a 3 mana card, so yeah, that's solid. Yeah. Sasquatch. Ooh. Even just Savannah High, man. Yeah, so I think you're going to be reliably seeing a 5-cost beast coming out of this, which means you can reliably play something on turn 3 out of it. So I think it is good enough to fit in the Discover package. So yeah, I think it's good enough. It's close, but I think it's good enough. And then we've got Gorm the World Eater. Wow. I mean, 10 out of 10 in terms of just like Big Timmy vibes. 3 mana 12/12 beast. That's awesome. It's very Dune. Very Sandworm. Dormant for 5 turns. At the end of your turn, destroy the minion to the right of this to awaken 1 turn sooner. So I don't think that's going to be optional. I think it's going to be one where you are choosing to put minions to the right of this, and it's going to destroy them at the end of the turn. So yeah, be careful where you put things. How much fodder, does it get? The extraterrestrial egg fits really, really well with this. So you play the egg turn 2, you play this turn 3. So it's dormant for 5 turns, eats the egg, dormant for 4 turns. Your egg spits out the 3/5 that probably kills something. And then it comes back round, and it's already ticked down to being dormant for 3 turns. So, that's already set you a long way into getting a very fast 12/12 down. Question really is how many classes can deal with a 12/12 coming out relatively quickly. Yeah, I think the control lists, this obviously eats the removal, and you obviously wanna be swinging around with the 12/12, but I think even if you just use this as a death rattle triggering thing, I think you're quite happy. Because what else can Hunter do with death rattle early in the game? Let's get off that. So you got the workhorse, which basically cracks itself into the same stats. So yeah, you can just chuck the workhorse next to this. Twisted Frost Ring is similar. It's basically spitting itself back out when it dies. I think Ranger Gilly, maybe not. But there's a lot of neutral ones as well. How many of them really see play at the moment? You can even use the OG eggs. So yeah, it could be a good egg hunter deck here. Yeah, I think Gorm's a nice open-ended design. We could see it cropping up for Death Rattle Hunter in whatever permutation that takes. Do I think the Starship deck is going to work? There's only really Biopod, and I don't think that's enough to get, what is it going to be, like a 16/18 or a 16/20, which, is going to hit something really hard twice. That could be a big game-ended thing, but you've got to dedicate the 2 Biopods, the Defense Crystal, and the core. The core being 3 mana 3/2 Divine Shield, which is not great. So, I don't think Hunter's got enough good Starship pieces. But that said, I do really want to, I think it's worth the extra push to get the laser barrage. So maybe it's just that you don't necessarily care that much about getting a massive spaceship, and you just kind of see it as a bit of a tempo swing. You push the button early, and you just get a pretty big minion. And if you've already, you've already gormed it up a bit, use your Starship. Yeah, it's going to be a minimal list, but I think the Starship might just about make the cut. So there you go. Yeah, I like the direction they've taken Hunter. It's a little bit different. So yeah.